You were never falling behind by accident, you were being placed exactly where your habits demanded, because the system you live inside does not respond to dreams, it responds to proof, and right now it is watching how long you stay comfortable with being overlooked. Every delay you justify is being recorded. Every excuse you normalize is being weighted. Every time you choose relief over discipline, something unseen quietly decides you are not ready yet. This is not punishment, this is sorting. While you wait for motivation, the hierarchy waits for consistency. While you ask for clarity, it looks for control. And the moment you realize that your current life is not happening to you but because of you, the game stops feeling unfair and starts feeling urgent. Most people believe life is chaotic, unfair, and random, but what they fail to see is that nothing around them is accidental, because from the moment you enter society you are silently placed inside an invisible hierarchy that constantly evaluates your usefulness, your discipline, your emotional control, and your ability to produce results, and this hierarchy does not announce itself, it does not explain its rules, it simply watches and responds, rewarding some with momentum while draining others of energy, confidence, and opportunity, and the reason most people never escape mediocrity is not because they lack talent, but because they never realize they are being ranked every single day by forces they refuse to acknowledge, the way you speak when no one is impressed, the way you move when no one is watching, the way you react when life applies pressure. All of it feeds into a silent judgment system that determines whether you are allowed to rise or quietly pushed aside, and this hierarchy exists everywhere, in careers, in relationships, in wealth, in influence, and even in self-respect, and the most dangerous part is that it does not punish you loudly. It simply removes friction for those who align with its laws and increases resistance for those who violate them, and over time this resistance feels like bad luck, exhaustion, and constant struggle, when in reality it is the cost of being misaligned, because the hierarchy does not respond to words or intentions, it responds only to behavior repeated consistently over time, and this is why motivation fails, because motivation is temporary but ranking is permanent, and the people at the bottom are not there because they were unlucky. They are there because their habits signal weakness, inconsistency, and emotional dependency, while those who rise signal reliability, restraint, and long-term thinking, and the hierarchy rewards predictability and discipline, not comfort and excuses, and once you understand this, you begin to see life differently, because every action becomes a vote for the position you are asking to occupy. The hierarchy does not care about your past, your trauma, or your potential, it only responds to proof. And proof is delivered through action under pressure, because pressure reveals structure, and structure is what the hierarchy respects. When a human collapses emotionally at minor obstacles, it signals instability. When a human delays necessary discomfort, it signals weakness, and when a human seeks validation before execution, it signals dependence, and these signals accumulate silently, shaping how others respond to you, how opportunities find you or avoid you, and even how your own mind treats you. Because self-respect is not an emotion, it is a byproduct of behavior, and the hierarchy begins inside before it manifests outside, which is why people who lie to themselves eventually lose authority everywhere else, because the system detects incongruence, and incongruence is punished through stagnation, while congruence is rewarded through momentum, and this is why discipline feels lonely at first, because you are separating yourself from the majority who operate on impulse, comfort, and short-term relief. And the hierarchy always favors the minority who can delay gratification without applause, because delayed gratification signals long-term value, and long-term value is what systems protect, and once you internalize this, you stop asking why life feels heavy and start asking what signals you are broadcasting daily without realizing it. Every environment is a filtering mechanism, not a nurturing one, and this is where most people misunderstand success. They think the world is supposed to help them grow, but the world is designed to expose who deserves to remain, and who must adapt or be eliminated, and elimination rarely means death, it means irrelevance, invisibility, and dependence, and the hierarchy applies this filtering through boredom, frustration, and resistance, because weak structures collapse under monotony, while strong structures sharpen under repetition, and this is why consistency is more feared than intensity, because intensity is emotional and temporary, but consistency is structural and revealing, and the hierarchy is obsessed with structure, the structure of your routines, your thoughts, your reactions, and your identity, because identity dictates behavior, and behavior dictates rank, and the reason people sabotage themselves when they get close to progress is because their identity is still calibrated to a lower position, and the hierarchy always enforces alignment between identity and outcome, so if you identify as undisciplined, reactive, or comfort-seeking, any success you touch will feel foreign and unsafe, triggering self-destruction, and this is not weakness, it is programming, and programming can be rewritten only through sustained behavioral proof, not affirmations, not inspiration, but quiet repetition of difficult actions long enough for the hierarchy to update its assessment of you. Once you see the hierarchy, you can no longer unsee it, because every interaction becomes data, every decision becomes positioning, and every excuse becomes a self-issued demotion, and the most powerful shift is realizing that no one is coming to save you from a low rank, because the hierarchy does not negotiate, it observes, and it promotes only those who remove chaos from their inner world before attempting to control the outer one, and this is why emotional regulation is power, why silence is strength, and why patience is leverage, because these traits signal control, and control is the currency of elevation. And when you begin to live as if you are always being evaluated, not by people but by consequence, your behavior sharpens, your standards rise, and your tolerance for self-betrayal disappears, and slowly, resistance turns into cooperation, doors open without effort, and respect appears without request, not because you demanded it, but because the hierarchy finally recognizes you as stable, useful, and aligned, and this is the hidden rule most never learn, that success is not achieved, it is granted, and it is granted only after the system confirms that you can be trusted with power, momentum, and freedom, without collapsing under their weight. What most people never understand is that the hierarchy is not cruel, it is efficient, and efficiency requires selection, because not everyone can be trusted with progress, freedom, or power without destroying themselves or others, and this is why the system applies pressure long before it applies reward, because pressure is the interview, and your response is the resume, and every time life becomes repetitive, boring, or heavy, it is not trying to break you, it is testing whether you can remain functional without stimulation, because anyone can perform when excitement is high, but very few can remain disciplined when nothing external is pushing them, and the hierarchy is obsessed with this phase, because boredom reveals true character, and this is where most people leak rank without noticing, through inconsistency, through emotional indulgence, through self-pity disguised as rest, and each leak is small, but together they form a pattern, and patterns are everything to the system, because patterns predict outcomes, and outcomes determine placement, and once you fall into a predictable low-performance loop, the hierarchy adjusts accordingly, lowering the quality of opportunities, weakening social leverage, and increasing internal resistance, not as revenge, but as alignment, because it cannot give more to someone who has not proven they can handle less. There is a moment in every disciplined life where the effort stops feeling heroic and starts feeling pointless. Where progress is invisible and validation is absent, and this is the exact moment where rank is decided, because the hierarchy is not testing what you can do, it is testing who you are when no one is reacting, and this is why most people unconsciously sabotage long-term growth, because their nervous system is addicted to feedback, and when feedback disappears, they assume something is wrong, but nothing is wrong, something is right, because silence is where the system measures self-trust, and self-trust is rare, and rare things are valuable, and valuable things are protected, which is why those who persist through this silent phase suddenly experience a shift where effort feels lighter, decisions feel clearer, and resistance begins to dissolve, not because the world changed, but because the hierarchy updated its assessment, recognizing structural stability where chaos once existed. At higher levels, the hierarchy stops rewarding effort altogether and begins rewarding restraint. Because power does not belong to those who try harder, it belongs to those who react less, and this is why emotional control becomes the defining currency of elevation, because emotions leak information, and information leaks control, and control is everything, and the people who dominate environments are not louder, faster, or more aggressive, they are calmer, slower, and more deliberate. Because deliberation signals foresight, and foresight signals safety, and safety is what systems invest in. And this is why silence intimidates, patience unsettles, and consistency outperforms talent, because talent without regulation is a liability, and the hierarchy eliminates liabilities eventually, not dramatically, but quietly, through missed chances and diminishing relevance, while those who master themselves begin to experience alignment so smooth it almost feels unfair, until you realize it is simply earned. The final realization is this: you were never meant to fight the hierarchy, you were meant to understand it and become compatible with it, because the system is not external, it is reflected through you, through your routines, your standards, and your non-negotiables, and the moment you stop demanding outcomes and start embodying structure, everything recalibrates, not instantly, but inevitably, and inevitability is the signature of true power, because what is inevitable does not need force. It moves quietly and cannot be stopped, and when you reach this state, you no longer chase success, you signal readiness, and success responds, not as a reward, but as a natural consequence, and this is where the hierarchy stops feeling like a judge and starts feeling like gravity, neutral, consistent, and unstoppable, pulling only those who have built enough inner mass to be worth moving. As your rank rises, the hierarchy begins to test you in a different way, not through struggle, but through temptation, because struggle builds discipline, but temptation reveals loyalty to structure, and this is where many strong people fall without realizing why, because they mistake ease for permission, comfort for safety, and flexibility for freedom, but the hierarchy watches closely how you behave when resistance disappears, because the absence of resistance is more dangerous than pressure. And when effort finally starts paying off, when doors open faster, when people listen more, when outcomes require less force, the system observes whether you relax your standards or reinforce them, because power magnifies who you already are, and if your structure is weak, power will expose it brutally, and this is why many people self-destruct right after progress, because their identity was built to survive struggle, not stability, and stability feels unfamiliar, triggering careless decisions, emotional indulgence, and subtle arrogance, all of which signal misalignment. And the hierarchy responds not with punishment, but with recalibration, slowly withdrawing momentum, increasing friction again, until the structure is rebuilt or the individual collapses back to a lower rank. True dominance is invisible, because the hierarchy does not reward visibility, it rewards predictability. And predictability only comes from internal order, not external control, and this is why the most powerful individuals rarely appear rushed, reactive, or emotionally invested in outcomes, because their leverage comes from position, not force, and position is earned through time spent mastering the boring, unglamorous details of self-regulation, decision-making, and restraint, and once you reach this level, the system no longer needs to test you loudly, because your behavior has become consistent enough to be trusted, and trust is the highest currency the hierarchy trades in, because trust reduces the need for oversight, and reduced oversight increases freedom, and freedom is the real reward, not money, not status, but the ability to move without resistance, to choose without permission, and to act without explanation, and this freedom is never given to those who crave recognition, because craving recognition signals insecurity, and insecurity destabilizes systems. At the final stages, the hierarchy stops responding to what you do and begins responding to who you are, because your identity has become stable enough to predict your behavior without constant proof, and this is where life begins to feel strangely quiet, almost empty of drama, because chaos no longer follows you, conflict no longer sticks, and urgency no longer controls your decisions, and many mistake this calm for stagnation, but it is not stagnation, it is control, and control is what most humans never experience, because they spend their lives reacting instead of directing, and once you arrive here, you realize that success was never about accumulation, it was about subtraction, removing emotional volatility, removing inconsistency, removing the need to be seen, and removing the habit of negotiating with weakness, and what remains is clarity, and clarity is lethal in a world built on confusion. This is where the hierarchy reveals its final rule, that it does not elevate those who want more. It elevates those who need less, because those who need less are harder to control, harder to distract, and harder to destabilize, and when you reach this state, life stops feeling like a competition and starts feeling like alignment, where effort flows naturally, decisions feel inevitable, and outcomes follow quietly, and you no longer ask whether you deserve success, because your daily behavior answers that question automatically, and if this script forced you to see your habits, your reactions, and your excuses differently, then understand this: awareness is the beginning, but action is the Proof, and the hierarchy does not respond to understanding, it responds to execution repeated over time, and if you are ready to move differently, think differently, and live differently, then stay connected, because this channel exists to expose the rules no one explains, and if this video shifted something inside you, make sure you like it, subscribe, and stay aligned, because once you see the hierarchy, you either rise consciously, or you fall unconsciously, but you never stay the same.